Call the meeting to order. I can't remember if we do the Pledge of Allegiance online or not.
Yeah, we
Oh,
should.
why
We've
not?
got people here in the room, so we'll
Okay,
stand.
sounds good. Pledge allegiance to the flag
flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. Where'd he go? Where'd he go?
So much for that. That was fun. Have a good night, everybody.
Hey, everybody, see you
thanks for
later.
playing.
Okay, come on. All right.
Somebody's got a hold of my computer, and I'm just hoping it's Chopper. Okay, roll call. Chisel.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Zittergrun.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Okay, very good. Public comment. Sergeant Scott Jennings is here to talk about the elder care program. Scott?
Yeah, my name is Sergeant Jennings. I work for the Decorah Police Department. The program I'm here to talk to you about today is
Hey, Scott,
Yep.
can you talk a little closer to the mic maybe? You're a little bit muffled.
Yep. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that,
Better.
Yep. Okay.
thank you.
So the program I'm here to talk to you about today is a community-based policing program designed for the older or elder portion of our community. This is intended to be a pilot program that's going to run for 6 months. Initially, this plan was, I guess, thought of or discussed back in December and January of last year before COVID-19. So we've had to make alterations to how it's been implemented and what scope we can do it in its initial phase. But the intent is to do home and or telephone visits with elder community members that may be in need of officer visits for either social reasons, to prevent abuse, to prevent crime victimization, to produce increased quality of life. And so what we've been doing so far is that I've been coordinating with the Northeast Iowa Area Agency on Aging, DHS, and Winnesheep Public Health to get referrals for individuals that might be good for this pilot program. So currently this isn't open up to the whole public. It's going to be a referral-based system just for the pilot. Eventually, I would like to see it become larger and to open it up to members in the public that would like to do it. The main reason that this kind of came about is I feel like we do a lot of community-based policing that's oriented towards kids and families, and a lot of times the elder community is neglected because either we're not dealing with them in negative ways, or we're dealing with them for medical related reasons. And I feel like that we had a duty as a department to create a program for the remainder of the community that sometimes is neglected. And like I said, hopefully we can reduce incidents of fraud, incidents of abuse, and just kind of increase their general quality of life by having somebody come check on them. And this program is going to be in addition to the other services that are already provided in the community by Meals on Wheels and DHS and the Northeast Iowa Area Agency on Aging and some others. And this program got inspiration because of a program in the town in Maine that I lived in had something similar. So in the future, we're hoping to grow it, like I said, and we'll evaluate it after this pilot program to see what kind of changes can be made and see if there's any other partnerships that we can add to help us assist in the program and to maybe offer it to more people. So
I know that that sounds like a super program. I know I was just talking to people about where they would get Meals on Wheels, which I think the hospital is doing some, but they were concerned about those people because that was primarily the main person who got to talk to them on a more regular basis. Council have questions, comments?
Officer Jennings, what's the number of participants right now?
We haven't started it yet. I'm hoping to start it on December 1st. The initial participant base is going to be 30.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I could ask what you feel the goal of the program is?
Like I said, one of it's just community partnership where I feel like that we're not necessarily directing community efforts as often towards older members of our community. And then the next portion of it is a lot of the people that we're initially selecting to be participants are people that may be in need somehow. They don't have family in the area. They don't have a regular care provider. They don't have a quality care provider that can check on them. Mainly just to prevent incidents of fraud, like I said, help them, have somebody that they know that's going to be regularly checking on them in their house, having that communication resource to the police department so they can have a predetermined visit with us where they don't feel like they're being a burden or anything like that by contacting us if they're having a problem.
So Officer Jennings, for that initial 30, then you would have a rotation that you would hope to visit them all within a certain time frame?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is probably every week or two. I think it's probably going to more likely be every 2 weeks to begin with. And depending on departments in terms of if we have illness, what the community spread of COVID is, we're likely to start doing telephone calls. Ideally, the in-person communication was what I'd like to do, where we're having officers meeting with in-person with people, but I know that's not always reality.
Thank you.
Is the design of the program, does the same officer go to the house, or is it a rotating, is it a sort of a partnership, one officer, one person?
I think we're going to try to do is set up it in pairs where we're going to have maybe one officer that's a primary and one that's kind of a backup so that they're kind of seeing the same couple people to
Sure.
kind of establish a relationship, have trust. And then we can also document things like if the person's having problems, we can guide them towards resources. We can do some of the basic things like if they need their sidewalk shoveled someday when we come out there this winter. Easy tasks that we can do in a 15-minute time period where we're helping them out and they're, have a positive view of the police department and may, have interest in calling in something in the future or, feeling less like they don't have that communication line with the police department.
Hey,
Officer Jennings, as you pilot this program, just two kind of questions. How are you tracking, success in terms of the pilot? What would give you inspiration to, expand it or continue it? And then also, how are you tracking what the program costs?
So initial program cost is just going to be based on our time spent. We're not, currently we're not adding any additional expense out of our department budget to pay for this. It's just going to be visitation. So if we have 30 people getting 2 visits a month, approximately 15 minutes each, we're just taking that out of our regular officer rotation. In the future, I would like to see additional resources put forward toward this. And I've working with other organizations to help potentially fund that. In terms of tracking success, I think in the plan at the end is to bring the officers together and to discuss what they're thinking about this, and then to develop some sort of survey system with these partnering organizations to give to the participants to see whether or not they thought it was valuable having officers out there.
Thank you.
And what other things they think they would like to see happen in the future.
okay. Well, I really appreciate you working at setting this up.
Yep.
And I'll look forward to hearing the tracking that you're doing and seeing where it goes. But I appreciate you working with it, Scott.
Yep. Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna, normally if they were able to be here, the Decorah Community Food Pantry would be giving a report as well. You'll find in the Dropbox the report that was from Georgie Cleaver. Just a couple things I'll note is the fact that when they first started, they started selecting food for people. Eventually they had to go online. And now people are starting to get used to being online and getting the food, and their hope to be able to get a 2-door freezer with some of the funds. If I'm not mistaken, Steve, did you work originally with the food pantry?
You know, I'm still pretty involved with the food pantry. You know, I can speak to this wearing my food pantry hat. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but you know, the reality is that the way that we're delivering food out of the food pantry for clients just requires a lot more refrigeration because we have to store it, and then we have to store the packages in another place. It required us to double our refrigeration capacity. I talked to Georgie this morning just to get details on this. It sounds like you all had approved money for the food pantry in your budget or in a special appropriation, and then she was asked to demonstrate how it would be spent before that money was appropriated. And so I think she was trying to indicate in this letter what the plans were by telling us that that it was for refrigeration. I can attest, you know, from my status on the food pantry that that's definitely a real need and certainly would be useful to the food pantry for its work.
Well, and they've done an unusual amount of work during this time period of getting food to people. I don't know how that compares to what their normal working with the citizens are, but I know that they've had to come up with ways such as the online, and then also to be able to, what I'll say, shuffle the food around too that would have come to them.
Yeah, like a lot of Decorah organizations and businesses, it's been a tremendous amount of running on the fly and learning and new things and yeah, it's been wild. But we've appreciated all the support that lots of people provided.
That's cool. Any questions from council, comments?
Where is the food pantry?
It's located in the Spectrum building at 110 Railroad Street. The Spectrum building that right now does residential services and where the Spectrum kitchen is located.
Okay, so it's in the new kitchen building?
It's
No.
go to the new kitchen. It's located in the building at 110 Railroad Street, just east of the kitchen.
If you go around the back,
If-
the entryway's in the back.
The food hub is in the kitchen. They use that cooler. And
Okay.
then there's a break, there's that gravel lot, and then the food pantry is right next door.
Gotcha.
So, well, please pass on to them how much we appreciate the work that they've been doing and the alterations they've had to make during this pandemic time.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job.
Mhm,
Do it. Thank you.
mhm. Okay, consent agenda.
Consent agenda consists of minutes of October 19, 2020 regular meeting, the claims, expanded outdoor service area for Pulpit Rock Brewery, Resolution 3133 obligating funds from Urban Tax Renewal Revenue Fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriations tax increment financed obligations, Rebound Hospitality for fiscal 22 with a payment of $118,849. Resolution 3134 obligating funds for Urban Tax Renewal Revenue Fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriations tax increment financed obligations, Car Auto Group, fiscal 22 payment $19,214. Resolution 3135 obligating funds from Urban Tax Renewal Revenue Fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriations tax increment financed obligations, which shall come due in the next succeeding fiscal year. Deco Bluffs Hy-Vee, fiscal 22 allocation $4,866. Change order number 1, Commerce Drive Improvement Project at a negative $1,059.00. And Resolution 3136, accepting Commerce Drive project as complete and authorizing final payment of $146,179.10.
This is Hadley. I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay,
Second.
Wanda, second by Carlson. Wanda has a comment or a question? No. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Talking,
okay.
we cannot hear her.
Yeah, okay. No, she's just clarifying. Yeah, sorry, she wasn't on the mic.
Okay.
Just clarifying the 146, 179 and 10 cents for Commerce Drive is actually the total project cost, not the final payment. So I don't know how that ended up like that, but understand the final payment is not 146, 179, 10. That's the entire project cost. Actually, I think
Okay,
I
so we have
that.
a motion by Hadley, seconded by Carlson. Any other further discussion?
I'll amend my motion to accept the consent agenda as demonstrated, with the exception of the final payment for item H being whatever the final payment should be, not the $146,179.10.
Carlson, you okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Roll call.
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Zittergrun.
Aye.
Okay. Considering amending ordinance 1257, an ordinance mandating the use of face coverings in public places within the city limits of the city of Decorah. Can you give some background on that, Jen?
So back in August, when the council had approved this ordinance, they also directed that they would have continued conversation about just keeping the ordinance timely and current, and you'd done that, I think, at least a little bit in every council meeting since, with the understanding that it would come back to council formally in November. And so we present it to you now for consideration to amend. And I guess if you read my background notes, really the only thing that came up through our conversations with the council is that the World Health Organization had made recommended changes to youth requirements for mask wearing for 5 and under, and our ordinance has a recommendation for 2 and under. That was the only change that came through previous conversations. At this point, staff recommendation would be that you maybe just consider doing nothing to the ordinance and just leave it as is, but that you direct staff and law enforcement to change how we enforce mask mandate for youth to follow World Health Organization guidelines. Rather than change the ordinance, which takes readings, publication, etc., we simply acknowledge, we ask you to acknowledge changing criteria, since it's relatively minor in this particular case, and just so direct staff.
I'm good with that. I think my comment would be, I think that I'm hearing rumblings within the community about our enforcement of this particular policy and that it's fairly lax. And I think coming up in the next couple months, especially with our numbers increasing, I've heard lots of people walking into bars that feel that there isn't an enforcement. There have been public meetings in public spaces where there's been no masks and advertised no masks. And so I do want to, as long as we're looking at the policy and thinking about enforcement of it, to keep in mind that we do have an ordinance saying that masks are required in public spaces, indoor public spaces in our community. And I'd like to make sure that that is being honored and respected and followed.
I also received a note from Kelly Winchester from, well, WOW, or Margaret's, that shared that they were people that came into the store that were upset because the mask policy wasn't enforced specifically in businesses, that they had been shopping downtown. And the women had been shopping downtown and found that some did not wear masks, both by staff or customers. And in one certain store had asked to put on a mask and the staff person declined, stating, why does Decorah bother with a mask if it can't be enforced? So we still have a lot of education to do with that and how to take a look at that, I think.
Mayor, did you pass that on to then Chief Schmutzler?
Actually, no, but I will. I'd be glad
I mean,
to.
I do think it's on all of us, city staff, public officials, those of us who represent the city of Decorah need to make sure that it's not a popular position, right? To walk in and say, you guys need to be wearing a mask, but it's an essential one. And we're watching what's happening to communities that are not masking up. And we don't want to head into the winter months being one of, I like the half of the counties we're on right now. I like being in a county that's, not looking at 15% positivity. And the only way we're going to stay that way is with masks. And I think we have this ordinance, and to not enforce it makes us seem ineffective and our policies disrespected. And I think it's on us to make sure that they get supported and passed. And I urge our public safety folks to consider that as well.
I have just an anecdotal story from a day or two ago. I went into my local convenience store. I was one of 2 or 3 customers in there. And there was a police officer in the store. And judging from the conversation with the customer ahead of me, she had come into the store without a mask. And I think the store manager, the person behind the counter, basically gave her a mask. And then I heard the customer apologize for forgetting her mask or not wearing it, and thanked the clerk for giving her one. And the
Good.
police officer was in the store. He was kind of, in the background. And I assume he may have just been in there as a customer, but I'm assuming he was in there just checking. So I think he was probably checking, and I applaud him for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Dave. I just got that this afternoon as well. So.
This is Steve Zittergren. Back to the specific, sort of matter we're discussing. I'm not entirely opposed to a enforcement carve out for children from 2 to 5, because I don't see any information that leads me to think they're a major driver of coronavirus spread in Decorah. However, I would like to point out that the WHO's recommendations suggest that first and foremost, you ought to follow your local authorities' recommendations. I looked up the CDC's recommendations, and they are still recommending face covering usage on people up to 5. So I hope that if we were to change this enforcement recommendation to our public safety officers, we would continue to commend as a best practice that children starting at age 2 do wear a mask. And I also reached out to the director of my kid's preschool, and I asked her how the kids there, who are all from 2 to 5, do at masking. She said that they're pretty good at it. If you have to remind them sometimes, but that's like a lot of adults I see too. They need reminding sometimes about how to wear a mask properly, and hey, it's dropped below your nose. I think it speaks well to the caliber of the children of this community that they are able to wear a mask properly. And I certainly don't want to see a police officer writing a summons to a 4-year-old. However, I don't know how vital this particular agenda item is to this discussion.
Okay. Any other further comments? We'll continue to watch and take note as we go along. If there would be anything else that would come up, we can always revisit it next month or whenever that time would be.
Mayor, this is Chad.
Yeah.
I would just ask if there are additional educational pieces or information that we can continue to push out. We did a fair amount in probably the first 4 or 5 weeks after the mandate was adopted by council. Those things kind of sit on social media and on our website. We can certainly just kind of hit refresh and reboost and get those things back out. But are there other things that you'd like to see done?
I think community policing is a great way of of reminding people and showing by example when the officers wear their masks and go in and do checks. You know, especially when the mayor has someone complaining that it's not uniform. That, you know, that we educate as we move on. And I don't know whether that needs to be a material, but certainly just referring people back to the ordinance would be beneficial.
Did we ever do our police officers give out face masks as well? Did we ever decide on did we ever make a Decorah face mask or anything like that the police officers give out, or do they have masks that they carry?
We do have masks that we hand out when we give the
Great.
warning. Every officer has them.
Thanks. I do agree, and I especially if there's an event, a public event advertised, and it says no masks required, I think that's a red flag.
Okay. Discussion and possible action on approving council goals for 2021. Chad?
Just a little background on this. As I mentioned at the council work session on October 26th, this is something that the council had worked through back in February, I think it was, and developed these goals. And then, you know, things kind of went crazy with COVID and the pandemic and everything else, and it got pushed aside. And so I'm just bringing it back after the, or during, rather, at the end of the work session, the strategic work session in February. The document that you have in your Dropbox is the one that was kind of created and by consensus approved by the council at that time, with the intent that it would come back for formal adoption by council. And so I'm doing that now. There are a few, maybe some of the dates or completion deadlines that might need to be tweaked a little bit. I guess my intent for bringing it tonight and mentioning it during the work session is that you'd kind of talk about it a little bit tonight, make some tweaks, if you will, and then would bring it back at the next council meeting for approval or adoption.
Since it's our document that we created, unlike I think we should adopt the capital improvement plan, but this goal setting report is largely completed, with the exception of the communication apps. Hopefully we're on track with the building and zoning administrator, as we discussed maybe this morning. Sustainability plan has been adopted, and the street maintenance and repairs and street improvement plan are perpetual and are under work. Do we need to adopt, Chad?
Well, you don't need to. It's whatever the council is comfortable with. I mean, you can just, you know, bless this document and say, staff, go forth and continue to work on these things, you know, and we'll do that like we have been, right? Yes, and then the capital improvement plan, that's the second piece of the whole thing. And again, that was kind of set aside, but it's back out in the forefront, and we'll work on getting that kind of finalized and to you for adoption as well. That's probably, you're right, more an important piece to formally adopt.
Yeah, this is Hadley. I would rather see the CIP brought forth for adoption, because our goals may, or at least the dates may be fluid because of staff time.
I know the one that I think I mentioned at the last city council too was the staff salary matrix, to try and bring that to the forefront. It's been a while for that. And then just starting to have discussions about facilities, public safety facilities, whatever way that would look, but just start getting into the discussion of it. Those are the pieces that I think when I'm looking at that need to be, maybe it's a matter of putting priorities out there as far as what else we need to work on in the next year. But those are the two that I would see.
And this is Chad. The facilities is really a big part of the capital improvement plan.
Right.
And again, over the last, in 8-9 months, you'll see a lot of those things already, kind of falling by the wayside too. Kristen's done a great job on a lot of the library project things. Those were on there. Things are in the works with the wastewater treatment plant. A lot of street projects have been done. But that's still a very important document, that CIP, with some of those other larger scale projects.
I would have to say the community-based goals, the priority task number 1 of economic development, including the housing, business growth, downtown, as we're going to be getting the report from our downtown visit, and the hotel motel finances. Somehow those need to be uplifted as not just ongoing, but visioning and thinking through and planning on where we headed here.
So maybe what I'll do, if it's all right with council, unless you have other thoughts, is, and we talked about this in February when we were going through this process, is that I will continue to keep this document with some staff comments in front of the council, probably, quarterly or something like that, or as maybe we hit significant benchmarks.
It's definitely, I think, an important document to have out during our budget season, to think about where we're putting our priorities.
Sure. Yep.
That, and maybe thinking about timeline when we're looking at the budget part of how you look at things on a timeline as well.
Chad, could you make this part of your city manager report? Just using these as headings and just give us an update that way? Sure.
Yep.
Just have it be a standing update, even if we don't talk about it, but having this be a living document and go into the notes.
Yes, I can do that.
I don't know how I don't want to direct myself, but I don't know how other council people feel about that, but I think it would be beneficial to be able to look back and just see progress at our meetings.
Agreed.
Not sure though that Chad's comments go into the minutes of each meeting.
They will in a work session though, right? If we do this.
Yeah, they would in a work session, but I don't know that documenting it that way, Steve, is as important as me having a conversation with you. Again, at periodic benchmarks, certainly when I do that, I would modify this document, maybe in red or some kind of notation. You'd see that in your Dropbox. So there's still documentation, even though it's not part of the minutes formally.
Okay, maybe I was misinterpreting what Ross was hoping to do.
One of the things that might be helpful too is as the department heads work on their budgets, they're going to be working on their staffing budgets as well. If there's some kind of questions you'd like them to be able to offer to you as far as that matrix is concerned, that's a big project, but they're going to be putting their salary stuff together, and you're looking for comparisons from other areas, other cities, whatever might be helpful for that piece.
Randy, have you guys, has your committee touched this since we talked about it?
The capital improvement,
No, the pay matrix.
Pay matrix.
not really. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit with other things, but no, we haven't sat down as a committee and talked about the matrix.
I think that's where it needs to go.
Yeah, because with 6 votes, I mean, that it seems like a clear, an edict, if you will.
Well, so right now the bottleneck is at the staff level, and we've been slowly kind of grinding through that, but it's a complicated thing. And actually, the more Wanda gets into it, the more she finds that this causes that effect. So, but we are working through it.
What we expect.
Okay. Any other discussion on the council goals? Hearing and seeing none. Consider approval and certification of 2020 residential tax abatement applications. additions, garages, or improvements, Nick and Hannah Perch at 605 Plum Street. Do you have information, do you have more information on that, Chad?
It's pretty straightforward. It's just another application that came in since the groundswell of them last meeting. This one is for remodel or an improvement to an existing home. You see the information there in front of you, so I would ask that the council consider certifying it as an eligible project for the program. And then also, just to let you know, I did receive 2 more last week at the end of the week, but I was not able to get them on the agenda, so you'll see a couple more coming yet, which is all fine. They just have to be certified by the city and sent to the county assessor before December 31. So that's why I typically do it in October, so we still have a little bit of room as the last ones kind of come in for the year.
And this is another completed project?
This is a completed project. Again, it's a remodel or an improvement to existing home. Cost of improvements were about $75,000 as certified by the owner. For room addition, 2-car garage addition, laundry improvements, and a master bath and suite improvement as well.
I'll move for approval.
Second, Carlson.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Zittergrun,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Okay, city managers report.
Just a couple of quick updates. We've, I think, completed our interviews for staff positions, and we're working through that. 2 in the street and the code compliance officer, we completed 2 interviews today. So hopefully by the end of the week or early next week at the latest, maybe, we're ready to make some offers and kind of get some things moving there. So that's been a good process. It's taken a while. Things just get crazy here in City Hall sometimes. So, and then with travel and interview schedules and that, but I think we're at the tail end of that. So, seems like I had one other thing, but I can't think of it now, so I'll just close.
Wanda, do you have anything?
She does not.
Okay. Let's see. I think I'd asked Chief Smetzler to give a comment on how he's working with the election for tomorrow, just generally speaking.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of planning. That's occupied a lot of time lately. We're uncertain how things are going to go. So we are planning for the worst, hoping for the best. We've got extra personnel that we're going to have out and about, bringing in a core group of supervisors. I'll be in and around Decorah the entire day tomorrow. We don't want to get too deep into the weeds as far as what we're strategizing, but just let you know that we are going to try to stack the deck in our favor. Working closely with John Anderson as well as the county attorney's office.
I assume this is all week you're thinking of.
Yeah, we're looking at not just election day, but the couple days following as well.
I appreciate that work done ahead of time. Is there any other department that wanted to state anything other than what they would have had in drop boxes? Don't hear or see anything. Council, Steve Luce.
I had a question for Andy regarding the parks and the deer program. And since shooting season is still upon us, if more people can be made aware of it, or I thought if he could say something to help us spread the word about it.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we've been in the same program for maybe 3 years now, 4 years, that the Park and Recreation Board allowed some hunting in the parks. This is archery only. And as you know, archery hunting is allowed in the city limits of Decorah. It was just not allowed in the parks before this. And so we do have a program where people can come and get written permission to hunt in some areas of the parks in a controlled situation. By controlled, I mean, we need to know where their tree stand is or where they're hunting from. We want to be in control of where they're going. We've got a list of kind of a set of rules or protocol that they follow that I wish I had in front of me right now with that question. But I definitely could share that with you here shortly, or share it with Chad and get that. So yeah, so in terms of, are you asking about trying to get more hunters in Decorah in general, or more hunters in the parks, or what are you asking, Steve?
All the above.
Okay. So as far as in the parks, I mean, I think we're at I don't know what is too many or too little. I don't know if we have a goal or try and get as many as we possibly can, and then nobody wants to do it. I guess we haven't got into anything like that. We've given permission that anybody that wants to follow the guidelines can do it. And I think right now there's probably 7 or 8 on our list.
We just want to know, are we thinning this herd? Is it working?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, based on my backyard.
Well, I actually have my own guard buck.
Yeah,
Guard buck
I think your buck is my buck too.
with a dog that was laying, up against the garage, and
Well, you can let them hunt in your backyard.
pardon?
You could let them hunt in your backyard.
All they gotta do is come up when they're hanging out. They've been there the last couple of days, but. Okay, anything else, Steve?
There'll be a SMID meeting Wednesday morning that I'll be participating in. And tomorrow, I think there's an election going on or something. So I encourage everyone who hasn't to make sure they exercise their availability of the ballot box.
Good. Randy,
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
thank you. Emily?
I'll just echo Steve. It's democracy. Everybody get out and vote.
Okay, Ross?
Thanks to Chad and the water treatment plant's gracious invite, I got a chance to go out and watch the application of waste onto a field. Mike gave me a good a science lesson as far as the effectiveness of biodigestion and whatnot, and how they clean out the tanks and work with the EPA on spreading the fertilizer onto fields outside of town. And we went out and he showed me the fields. We watched it getting knifed in. It's knifed in at 16 inches. So even with rain, it doesn't, there's not a runoff issue, which I thought was really good. And I just really appreciate how much of a kind of a great cross between an art and a science it really was. They've got it down to a science as far as the hauling and the spreading and the timing and everything like that. It was really, really astounding to watch, and to hear that the crop outputs of the fields that are using this fertilizer that's being produced by the sewage treatment plant are close to, if not better than, commercial fertilizer. Was kind of fun too. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, obviously encourage everyone to get out and vote, exercise your right to do that. And I hope that everyone can remain civil towards each other with the outcome, regardless of who wins. Really hoping that we can be kind to each other. I think that's what we need right now. And Steve, thanks for covering the deer. I did get a call from Janelle Pavlovic, and she was encouraging us to talk more about that. She doesn't believe that there's enough public information. So I see Paul Scott is no longer on here tonight, but if we could maybe get him to maybe put something out there to encourage people to take advantage of that program.
Hey, Andy, this is Chad.
Is Paul there?
Paul and Janelle are both sitting right here.
Janelle, maybe you should talk to Paul after the meeting. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Okay, Steve Zittergren.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. The first is that this week I went on a library tour. I think that well, she was listening, and is she still here? Yeah, Kristen's here. Saw the renovations they're doing. It was really interesting and got a lot of good information. I also went on the sewage, the wastewater treatment plant tour, and it was definitely as advertised, really interesting. Had my 4-year-old in tow. I had about 5 minutes of questions about what happens to our wastewater. She had another 20 minutes of questions, and I'm very grateful to Mike for his patience. And it was interesting to see. It's neat how we think about protecting our natural resources while dealing with our wastewater. And I was glad that was on the radar. I learned a lot. I also this last week via the food pantry had the occasion to need to call the police in Decorah, and I just want to commend them for their quick response to an issue we were having, the helpfulness of the officers on the scene. It's always good to see how well served we are by our public safety officers. And going into the election tomorrow, while obviously we all hope for a clear result that is accepted by everyone, for a lack of voter intimidation and for the ability of our counting workers to count the vote and make sure that everyone's vote is counted. I'm glad to hear that our police officers are making plans for some of those things not happening. So my hats are off to you for the 2 ways in which I've seen you serving our community this week directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Kurt Johnson.
Just a reminder to everyone to get your evaluation forms in for personnel matters. And I need to get together with Andy, Emily, and Lorraine and Chad sometime in the near future, hopefully later this week. But let's talk about a time that works. Maybe we have to do it on Zoom this week. I'll talk with Chad tomorrow and get back to all of
you. Okay. Let's see, I did get a letter from the Iowa Municipal Professionals Academy, ISU Extension and Outreach, and who wanted to thank the city of Decorah for supporting our staff for them to be able to attend the Iowa Municipal Professionals Academy. And they wanted to acknowledge and comment on Wanda's participation at the academy. It reflects positively on the dedication of your city staff to provide sound, competent, and professional administration for your citizens. Thank you and the council for supporting and continuing professional education. Just a reminder to the public for if you're interested in running for Ward 5 to get those applications in. I believe the deadline for that is, I believe it's November 14th, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you might be, Mayor. I think it's the 13th, but I can look.
Okay. I knew it was one of those two. One is there, maybe Chad, you could pass on what that deadline is.
Wanda says November 13th.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to do it on the 14th then, because you'd be too late. So appreciate the work from all the council and department heads even during this very unusual time. Do I have any other matters to come before the council? Anything I forgot? Nobody?
Lorraine,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, this is Ross. I just wanted to, Chopper doesn't have anything in Dropbox. I just wanted to ask Chopper and Chad how things were progressing with the fiber RFP.
This is Chad. We have a meeting set up next week, I believe, with our financial advisor to go through that information.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting.